Hey, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. It's Suzette Speaks, sitting in for Farajii Muhammad right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We have a fantastic show lined up for you, ladies and gentlemen. First, we're going to kick off our discussion today with a new study released out in California that studied Black patients and how they behave and speak a little bit differently to avoid discrimination when they're visiting the doctor. We're going to get into it, y'all. Then we're going to move to a pre-recorded segment that Farajii and I did earlier this week with one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter Los Angeles chapter, Dr. Melina Abdullah. She gives us a great update. And then we are going to finish off in the last hour with a terrific discussion with our relationship expert, Ms. LaDawn Black, as we talk about two women who have had an incredible impact on the culture this week. I'm talking about Ciara and Monique. Both these superstars made bold statements, and we're going to talk about it. Get ready for a dynamic discussion. This is The Culture. I'm Suzette Speaks, sitting in for Farajii Muhammad. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's The Culture on the Black Star Network. Please do hit the like button, comment, and share as we get into today's topics. And at the top of our show here, we're going to discuss a recently released survey from out of California. I'll be joined by a Culture Crew member. I'm super excited to have her. Karina Denise will be passing through to give us her take on today's top stories. So we're starting out today talking about a study that was released in California. So you ever read a study and the data presented you kind of already knew? Well, anecdotally, many of us, members of the Black community, will say we know of a time where we, or perhaps our parents, made a little extra effort when we went to the doctor to look better, speak better, change, our patterns of being to make sure we didn't become the victims of bias. Well, a new study that was recently released out in Cali is just confirming what many of us already know. I'm going to ask that we bring up this story. Let's take a look at what we have here about Black Californians. It says, Black patients modify speech, dress up to reduce medical bias, a survey shows. Now, many Black Californians report adjusting their appearance or behavior, even minimizing questions, all to reduce the chances of discrimination and bias in hospitals, clinics, and doctors' offices. Of the strategies they describe taking, 32% pay special attention to how they dress. 35% modify their speech or behavior to put the doctors at ease. And this is a big one, folks. 41% of Black patients signal to providers that they are educated, knowledgeable, as well as prepared. We're gonna get your feedback. If you, Culture Crew, have seen or done any of these behaviors, I want you to write it in our chat. And if you're watching Team Replay, be sure to leave a comment below. I read this study and I thought to myself, it was an article from The Griot. You guys can check it out. And I thought to myself, this is something that I've seen in my own life, anecdotally speaking, again, that I didn't necessarily need a study to tell me. Even as a little girl going to the doctor's office, I hope you guys can relate, my mother went through extra lengths to make sure we were scrubbed down, that we were, well-groomed. Of course, any parent who wants to present their child the best way possible does this. But what this study is showing us, y'all, is that in the African-American community, we're doing this with a different purpose. That is that we are trying to prevent medical bias. And this study goes on to show a few more very significant findings. I'm really, Really grateful that you are all here and hopefully can provide some feedback as to what your experiences are when it comes to the medical profession. Now, we know about the history of distrust between the African American community and the medical profession. I'll speak the names of those that have gone before, like Henrietta Lacks. And of course, we know what happened with her stem cells. She's the mother of modern medicine, literally stolen without her family's knowledge, and has been used in so many different laboratory studies in order to create a life-saving medicine. We know the story of the unfortunate Tuskegee studies, where we know that African American men were subjected to syphilis exposure and not told that they were, in fact, in a longitudinal study that would lead many of them to die under, government-based medical research. So I also want to take this discussion, y'all, to what happened during COVID-19, because we know, and it has been shown, that twice as many African Americans also lost their lives during this horrible pandemic that we've just all endured. And many would argue that it's due to medical bias. What's your opinion? Please talk to me. This is an interactive show. Put your comments in the chat. I'm going to go back to this article. And Keenan, if you would, could you please pull up the next quote for me, please? Because there are so many parts of this article I found very interesting. And again, if you are one who goes the extra mile and make sure you are changing your behavior and your speech patterns, it is incredibly important to realize what the intention is behind that, when what we are all trying to avoid, which is being treated differently or not receiving the best medical care as would other patients. I'm going to look at the article. If you would, there is another quote that comes from this article that says, the ubiquity of these behaviors, meaning they are constant and across the board, right, is captured in a survey of, and they used 3,325 people, respondents, as a part of an October study titled Listening to Black Californians, How the Health Care System Undermines Their Pursuit of Good Health. Now, this study was funded by the California Healthcare Foundation. And just so we know what that is, California Healthline is an editorial independent service of the California Healthcare Foundation. So I was not surprised, and part of its goal was to call attention to the effort Black patients in specific must take and must exert to get quality care from health care providers. This is very crucial, y'all. I need you to talk back to me in the chat. We're going to pull up a few of your comments just momentarily. But as I was thinking about this study, y'all, there's so much that came to mind that reminded me of even what I do in my adult years, right? So when we prepare to go to the medical office or the hospital, we always, and again, I did not think it was something that was unusual until this study also brought it to mind that I am actually overcompensating like many of the patient responders in this survey. So whether we're going to, ladies, our annual OBGYN visit, or whether you're going for your annual checkup, we oftentimes push ourselves to behave in a different way in order to put the doctor at ease. Now, what does that say about the medical profession and what should be done in terms of sensitivity training and really cultural training when it comes to understanding why we saw, for example, during the COVID-19 era, a distrust of even the vaccine? Now, I don't want to make this a vaccine a debate, but we have to understand the mentality that many Black people are utilizing so that they feel they will receive equal treatment when they go to the doctor. Let's read some of your comments. Let's start with, how about Nicole? Hey, everybody in the chat. I didn't get to say hello and leave everyone a message, but welcome one and all to the Culture Crew. Nicole starting us off today saying there is medical bias when it comes to African and Black Americans. It has existed for years. Speak your truth, sis. We thank you so much, as always, for being a wonderful member of the Culture Crew and contributor today. Let's see. How about we bring up Tiana? Let's bring up Tiana's comments. Thank you, Tiana, for leaving a comment in the chat. Tiana shares, I've had a doctor not take my pain seriously. Has this happened to you? I can relate, sis. I switched doctors. I only have doctors who are women and, in her words, non-white. I find that they actually listen. Now, this is, again, a problem that is not just specific to you, sis. We've seen this across the board when it comes to what patients are reporting. And it's unfair, right? Everybody deserves a long life. Everybody deserves to live and receive the best medical care possible. But it is a known fact that there are disparities across the board. We could talk about fibroid treatment. We could talk about breast cancer and how much more African American women suffer there. We could talk about prostate cancer. We can see that the numbers are skewed. And again, many commentators point to the distrust of the medical establishment. So how will they break that down? We're going to talk about it in a sec. Let's go to another Culture Crew member. How about Mike V? Hey, Mike V, thank you for your comment. Mike V writes, my doctor is Sudanese, all right, and always culturally aware of concerns. Now, I could give you my own anecdotal experiences with this. I've walked into doctors' offices with studies telling them, this is what I see in terms of the occurrence of this XYZ with Black women. And there's a new study out of Howard. I mean, I've had doctors' eyes open wide, like, I'm telling them how this thing works and how we're going to approach it. But we're talking about a new study, a survey that came out of Black Californians. Over 3,000 were polled and asked what their experience was like. And many of them wrote that they do change their speech, their clothing, and how they address their doctor, and even will refuse to ask questions so that they are not discriminated against in terms of their treatment. Let's go to another comment from, let me see. Nicole came back strong. Nicole says, this is why I see you, sis, and welcome everybody. Hit the like button as you comment. Feel free to like, comment, and share. She says, this is why several, Nicole's comment says, this is why several of my doctors are Black. Now, we know there is a gap in the number of Black physicians in our country, right? And not everybody has the privilege of even having access to physicians who are Black because of where they live geographically, et cetera, et cetera. So we are presenting to you what is a known issue. And again, when I read this survey, I was quite, unsurprised. I know this is something that I've seen in my own life, especially with my parents and how they perceive going to the doctor. And we're going to dig a little deeper into the survey because it's important that we bring light to it so that we can mitigate any kind of bias that we perceive or that is real when it comes to the medical establishment. But this survey came out just in October. It was very, very critical that we kind of pay attention when it comes to why Black people feel that the medical establishment will not provide them the best care. Let's get to a couple more comments before we have to take our first break. Let's read Janae's comment, please. Let's see what Janae had to say. But just talking about menopause, can you bring up Janae's comment? There we go. Thank you. But just talking about menopause, the Asian doctor I had, because my main OB was overbooked, couldn't even answer any questions about my weight gain. Good thing I knew enough for myself. My goodness. We want to keep your comments coming. This is a group discussion, y'all. Let's take our first break. There's a lot more of the culture coming up right after this.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's The Culture. I'm Suzette Speaks, sitting in for Farajii Muhammad today. And we are talking about a survey that came out of Black Californians explaining that Black patients often act differently, speak differently, and dress differently to avoid bias. And I want to ask my culture crew, why do you think that is? I am really curious to know what you think. I see the comments coming. We're going to put your comments up. And I want to hear really what you think about this and what could possibly be done about this. I see you in the chat. Please say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. Let's bring up another part of the survey if we can, so that we can, again, get some feedback from our culture crew members. And I see it here. The survey also said, and this is a doctor who was kind of evaluating, again, Black patients modifying their speech and dress to reduce medical bias, right? And this is a 3,000 plus Black respondents from California. And it says, if you look at the frequency with which Black Californians are altering their speech and dress to go into a healthcare visit, said Shakir Byerly, whose research firm, Veritas, led the study, that's a signal that something needs to change. 1/3 of Black patients, this is important, y'all, report bringing a companion into the exam room to observe and advocate for them. And the study found more than 1/4 of Black Californians avoid medical care simply because they believe they will be treated unfairly. We got to talk about this, y'all, because our health is our wealth, and it's really important that we kind of get it out there as to what our experiences are, so medical professionals and others can really understand what's happening and mitigate some of this. Let's get comments. Hey, Lori, can we get Lori Parks? Lori says, thank you for writing me, love. Says, I always had Black doctors. All right, Doc McStuffins. I love that character. If you guys know what I'm talking about, the little ones have an example of a Black doctor who is, I think she's a veterinarian. I was raising my children. I had a Black pediatrician, OBGYN, and dentist. Yes, I'm thinking about it, and I'm pretty much remembering the same. I have a Black dentist as well as my OB for a while. I had to switch, but I hear what you're saying. And I did have a Black pediatrician too. Shout out to Dr. Haywood, but I did have a Black pediatrician as well. And I think my parents really wanted us to know that's something that we could be and something that we could see, and to normalize that and the love we receive from her. And of course, the wonderful care. I hear you, sis. Thank you so much for that comment. Let's go next to Janae in response to Lori. Thank you, Janae. She says, I do too, Lori, but COVID shifted my appointments. They were made, and the way how my appointments were made, and then they pushed it out. I really needed medical attention. I would be up a creek, but we have to just be as informed about our own bodies. I've seen this, and I know a lot of this naturalistic, and there's always kind of been an undertone in our community as a part of our culture, the natural remedies and healing. We've always fallen back to that because grandma medicine, thank you, Lord, they were our first physicians, really. And those wonderful remedies that have been passed down have kind of been a cornerstone of our health. Although there are times, and I'd like to remind us, that you need to go to the doctor, right? We can use the herbal and it can work, but there are some interventions that require, more medical establishment type approaches. So we got to be very true to that. Something that, this comment made me think about, if we remember, and I just want to call out her name. I think her name was Dr. Moore. This was a woman during the COVID crisis that as a physician, I remember she recorded a selfie from her hospital bed. I believe that was in Illinois, and talked about the disparate treatment she was receiving as a doctor who had suffered, the COVID-19 complications. And she was really, going through it, and they were mistreating her as a doctor, and she recorded it. And I believe she was sent home and lost her life a little bit later on. And it was so sad. And again, I call all those names that we lost, and I think about them as we talk about this discussion. But it's our right. Healthcare is our right as well. And we should be able to go to the doctor expecting the highest level of care. Let's go to thank you, Joel. I see a statistic here, just in case, we are wondering, so we can understand how many Black doctors there are. About 5.4% of all U.S. doctors. Wow. 2.6% are Black men. 2.8% are Black women. Imagine that, you guys. 5.4. They're a little higher than lawyers. Lawyers is 5%, but Black doctors nationally, wow. 5.4% total of U.S. doctors are African American or Black, right? Black diaspora included. 2.6 Black men, 2.8 Black women. Wow. And just think about that proportionately. The Black population of the United States is approximated at 13% of our total population, right? So you can see that we're already, facing a disparity there. Let's go next to Tiana, please. Tiana, I see you, darling. Thank you for being here. Another member of the Culture Crew chiming in. She says, it seems like after the early 2000s, it's hard to find a Black OBGYN. Thank you for that observation. Yeah, I have. And again, I think I'm biased being in Miami, sometimes because of just the population density. And therefore, we have more Black doctors and more Black lawyers, in fact, than the norm of an average, mid-sized to, Miami is highly metropolitan, but compared to other mid-sized cities around the country. So, but I hear you loud and clear on that. Oftentimes, even if you wanted a Black physician, you might not have access to one. Y'all, we are talking about an interesting, put Dr. Susan Moore, call her name, Dr. Susan Moore, who unfortunately lost her battle due to COVID-19 complications because she went into the hospital and she herself recorded herself saying how biased, to put it nicely. The treatment was that she was having to prove that she needed meds and having to prove that she had other complications, as if they didn't want to treat her, and she ended up losing her battle. We remember these things. They kind of stick in our cultural memory. But again, we've lost twice as many African Americans to COVID. And there's, a lot of reasonings behind it, but comorbidities, etc. But there is also a contributory element of bias, many would argue, in the treatment. Let's see this quote from CNN, please. One reason, let's see, why the percentage of U.S. doctors who are Black remains below the U.S. population is that can be traced by how many Black people have been historically excluded from medicine. We can put that one up, Joel, if you can. The quote from CNN, please. And I'll read it out. Black people have been historically excluded from medicine. And that we are still facing these unfortunate odds when it comes to what is happening in the medical profession. So CNN says one of the reasons why percentage of U.S. doctors who are Black remains far below that of the U.S. population is that it can be traced to how Black people have historically been excluded from medicine in some of the instances that I've described, and the institutional and systemic racism in our society, says Michael Dill. This is from CNN, the Association of American Medical Colleges Director of Workforce Studies. So it's important that we do have these studies and surveys. And again, I would even extend this issue as, pertaining to clinical trials as well. We need Black people to do clinical trials. And sometimes, again, there's this distrust in the medical establishment that is not allowing us to go into the trials or volunteering for the trials in the same kind of frequency as our other counterparts. But it's important because we need the data to ensure that, drugs or medicines or treatments are also effective, with our predisposition. So that's important. And the industry needs to catch up. Let's go to Sandy W., please. Hey, Sandy, how are you? Culture Crew member in the building says, I think it's about making the patient comfortable. In my opinion, they understand cultural nuance. So yes, when you are kind of, and I don't want to give the impression that there are white people that cannot be culturally aware. Some amazing white doctors, right, who have a cultural competence, right? But we need more of that. Thank you, Sandy W. I want to go now to, let me see. Let's finish off with McCall. McCall, thank you for your comment. Thank you so much for your comment, sis. This is an important subject, and we want to keep it in the form. McCall adds to the discussion by saying, I find that going on Facebook to your local Black-owned business page is also a great way to find a Black doctor. Can I just throw this in before we end this segment? I agree with you, McCall. There are also medical professions like psychologists, psychiatrists that have websites. So if you want a Black therapist, for example, which also sometimes affords a little bit more cultural competence when it comes to our mental health needs, there are websites, and I've used them to find people in my local area who I think would best suit my needs. I'm so grateful that this study was done and that Black Californians made their voices heard. And I do think perhaps if this was done in other places, we would find similar findings. What y'all think? And again, there are some studies that come out that I didn't need them to do a study to let me know. I already knew that this kind of behavior was happening, but now we have some empirical data to back it up. But y'all, we have to take another quick break. We have a special segment that Farajii and I pre-recorded earlier this week for you when we come on back. And then we're going to be live talking about Monique and Ciara, y'all. The second hour is about to be fire. So don't go anywhere. More of the culture right after this.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Welcome back, y'all. It's The Culture, and I'm Suzette Speaks, sitting in for Farajii Muhammad. Next, we're going to have a very special segment. This is a segment that Farajii and I pre-recorded earlier this week for Dr. Melina Abdullah. She is one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter chapter of Los Angeles. Now, what I learned from this interview was that there are different segments now of the Black Lives Matter movement. Pay attention to that, folks, because she was calling it the Black Lives Matter grassroots versus the more corporate part of the organization. And she also gave us a great update with what's happening in Florida with Black Lives Matter. And Professor Melina Abdullah is not only an American former academic, or excuse me, she's still not academic, but she's a former chair of the Pan-African Studies Department at the California State University. And she really did a great job giving us an update. We're going to play this segment, and then we're going to come back right after live. And of course, we're going to be talking about what happened with Ciara's dress, and of course, Monique's big announcement. But for right now, please sit back and enjoy this part of the conversation with Dr. Melina Abdullah with a Black Lives Matter update.
All right, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Folks, now we want to have a conversation talking about racial and social justice as we're continuing to see a number of police brutality cases and other incidents where we're still showing that even though the great demonstrations of summer of 2020 has impacted the culture, there's still a lot of work to be done to bring some level of justice to grieving families around the issues of police brutality and other things of great concern for the Black community here in this country. So we are joined by my dear sister, Dr. Melina Abdullah, who serves as the director for Black Lives Matter's Grassroots here in Los Angeles, to give us some updates about some of the cases that you may have heard or may not have heard around police brutality and some of the other work that they're doing. And I'm still joined by my sister Suzette Speaks. You can definitely check her out at Suzette Speaks on YouTube. And she is an attorney out of the state of Florida. But Dr. Melina, thank you so much for joining us here on The Culture once again. How are you this afternoon?
Thank you so much for having me, Brother Farajii. I'm blessed to be here. Thank you.
Great. Dr. Melina, let's talk about a couple of the big conversations and the big things that you guys are doing for Black Lives Matter Grassroots, because you guys have been keeping us up to date on those cases that we haven't seen gone mainstream yet. A lot of times, when we have conversations with you and when I talk to other members of BLM, y'all are working on like the next case. It's not even just about the one case that we might be still talking about. Folks are maybe still talking about the implication of like the Tyree Nichols case and how many police officers were involved and lost their jobs, but y'all are on something else. Y'all like, look, okay, that was brought to the forefront. We're moving to the next case. Let me ask you a question about that. Like in terms of making sure that families of these victims and the families of the victims, and more importantly, making sure that the Black community understands that these things are still happening. Is that intentional for you to still kind of keep this steady pace of making sure, like, you're not just harping on one thing, but look, we're trying to cover as many cases. We're trying to get as much word about some of these other cases out there as much as we can. Is that intentional?
Well, listen, it's not intentional. It just happens to be the way that we have to move, because police violence and white supremacist violence is not letting up. In fact, 2023 is outpacing 2022, and 2022 was the highest year on record for the number of people killed by police. And so we're looking at, for instance, in the city of Los Angeles, LAPD and LA County sheriffs each have 5 killings already. We look at smaller departments in the area like the Huntington Park Police, which murdered a double amputee in a wheelchair named Anthony Lowe. You see this horrific video of Anthony Lowe running on what used to be his legs. He doesn't even have legs, but trying to flee from police on his legs, on his non-legs, right? And so what happens is Black Lives Matter has to continuously respond to a continuous onslaught that steals Black life. Most recently, we were in Buffalo, New York. And as you know, we've been there since May of last year, when 10 of our loved ones were slaughtered inside that Tops grocery store by a white supremacist. But we also know that Tyler Lewis was murdered on the campus of University at Buffalo by a white assailant. And the district attorney, the Erie County district attorney, tried to protect the white assailant and hide behind secret grand jury process, a secret grand jury process that also refused to bring justice for 15-year-old Jaheim McMillan in Gulfport, Mississippi. This is just coming out over the last couple of weeks. So when you talk about having to move on, what really happens is it's not that we're moving on, it's that there is constant new cases that are added to our plate because white supremacy and police violence doesn't stop. And so we have to continue to respond.
And I think that is the part for a lot of people, and Suzanne, I want to get your take on this as well. I think that is the part for a lot of people. Have you found, Dr. Molina, that these cases are happening at such a rapid pace that essentially people have just zoned out? They have said, you know what? Okay, we dealt with Tyre Nichols. We saw the brutality of that case. We saw the layers of Black police officers brutally beating a Black man. I'm zoning out at this point. How do you keep people interested in wanting to be a part of the fight around this issue?
Well, I think one of the teachings that I've hopefully gleaned from one of my mentors, Baba Akili, who's our national field coordinator for Black Lives Matter grassroots, and he's in his 70s, a seasoned veteran who will say that he's been in the fight all of your life, right? Is that we have to also uplift the fact that when we fight, we win. And so in Louisiana, the murder of Ronald Green, and we know in rural Louisiana, they tried to cover up the murder of Ronald Green, and his family and organizers continued to push. And now the cops who are responsible for Ronald Green's murder are actually facing trial. They'll go on trial April 11th. And so we have to lift up that when we fight, we win. We have to constantly say it's worth the struggle, because as we struggle, we move further down freedom's road, and that benefits all of us. It benefits our future generations. I know that I call it my sacred duty. I'm a mother of 3 children, and I can't leave the world like it is to them. And so when we speak in those terms and we uplift the victories that we won. Again, here in Los Angeles, we won $120 million investment in Black students through LAUSD, the Black Student Achievement Plan. And we have to say, you know, the students and teachers and frontline organizers and parents, we won this and it benefits our students. So we can't give up the fight. We have to continue to fight, because when we fight, we win, and there's too much at stake not to win.
Absolutely, absolutely. Suzette, what's your take on this in terms of the rapid pace of not just seeing these cases? And I'm like Dr. Molina, you know, you feel like it's your duty to let people know that this stuff is still happening, right? And you want to try to bring justice to as many families as possible, and not just talking about the case that has gotten the most mainstream media attention. So what's your take around it, especially if people are just tired of hearing about this level of brutality?
Well, first and foremost, I want to applaud you, sister, for being here and for the work you were doing. The human being in me, not the attorney, not the television host, none of that, wants to just know that you're okay when it comes to the heaviness on the mental health burden, so to speak, that you and the folks who do work like you do oftentimes endure while trying to keep the names of those lost at the fore. So thank you again for that. I was wondering, I was going to ask our beautiful guest if she sees the White House having any impact when it comes to policing, that is, whether an executive order or other attempts to try to develop a plan for how local police departments can better serve their communities in lieu of legislation. Now, I know we can talk, you know, qualified immunity and how our Senate and our House does not have an appetite for that, it looks like, at this point. So is there more that the administration itself could do, either through executive action? Is BLM trying to propose other reforms? If so, how? I just want to know, where do we go when Congress kind of has, you know, become disinterested or really is at a standstill when it comes to these critical issues?
So thank you for that question. And we are working, you mentioned qualified immunity. We are working with courageous members of Congress like Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley on ending qualified immunity. We're reintroducing that this year, the Ending Qualified Immunity Act. We're also looking at how do we end this process of secret grand juries, which almost never bring justice, which is only used as a way for DAs to hide and not bring justice for our people. We're looking also, you know, some of the names that we've heard Tyree Nichols, we've heard Keenan Anderson this year. We remember Philando Castile, we remember Sandra Bland, and some of the conversation has also been about, where do police absolutely not belong? And we know they don't belong in traffic. We know that they don't belong in mental health. We know that they don't belong in our schools. There's never been a case where a school police officer has stopped a mass shooter. And so really there's also the question of the budget and the purse strings, and saying we need to make sure that we invest heavily in the things that actually keep people safe: housing, good livable wage jobs, education, healthcare, including mental health care. And so we're working on those sorts of things in terms of policy. We have a very massive, beautiful piece of legislation called the Breathe Act, which is part of Movement for Black Lives. We've brought up, and we're looking at pieces of the Breathe Act and ushering in pieces of the Breathe Act to make sure, again, that we invest in the things that actually make communities safe. And then lastly, I'll just say that as we struggle to end police violence and white supremacist violence, we also celebrate our people. And so, you know, my lovely, beautiful sister, this is a month that we have claimed as Black Women Are Divine Month. And in the name of Breonna Taylor, we lift up living Black women who've taken on this struggle and made it a beautiful struggle, and are celebrating and reclaiming the divinity of Black women, saying Black women are not the mules of the world. We are divine. We're divine emanations, and we celebrate each other.
Amazing work. I love to hear it.
No, and that's dope right there. That I'm telling you, that is super dope right there, Doc. That is a beautiful thing right there. That celebration has happened. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation, more Black Lives Matter movement updates with our sister, Dr. Melina Abdullah, who serves as the director for Black Lives Matter Grassroots here in Los Angeles. And of course, more from our sister Suzette Speaks. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking to Dr. Melina Abdullah, who serves as the director for Black Lives Matter Grassroots here in Los Angeles, talking to us about some of the campaigns and initiatives that they're working on to make sure that the call for racial and social justice does not go unheard. Of course, I'm being joined by my sister, Suzette Speaks, as well. And I want to bring Dr. Melina and my sister back into the conversation because, you know, Dr. Melina, y'all got so many things moving. You're talking about these cases, but you're also talking about celebrating women, talking about the divinity of Black women during this month. And of course, you know, this week marked the 3rd year anniversary of the death of our beloved sister, Breonna Taylor. So this is in her name. But when we're talking about this fight for Black Lives Matter, because there's still, unfortunately, and Suzette, I don't know what y'all hearing down in Florida, but it's crazy that people are still questioning the legitimacy, the work, the value of Black Lives Matter, and the work that the you know, in particular the grassroots division is doing, and more importantly, the clarion call of Black Lives Matter. Why is it that the case, Dr. Melina? Why are people still asking the question, well, what is Black Lives Matter? Why do we need it? You know, what's the value? What's the importance? I mean, this is getting to be an old conversation. In light of all of the stuff that's happening with Black folks in this country, we're still asking, does Black lives really matter? Why is that the case in your respect?
Well, I think that in some ways, you know, we've allowed ourselves to believe what's coming out of the right. We've allowed ourselves, or some have allowed themselves, to believe what white supremacy is saying. But all we need to do is look at the numbers, right? If we look at the numbers, Black Lives Matter was born in 2013, comes out of the injustice that was carried out against Trayvon Martin with his killer being acquitted. And we were born the day that George Zimmerman was acquitted. I believe in saying the names of murderers so that we can hold them accountable. If you see George Zimmerman in the streets, you need to know who he is. I'll just leave it at that, right? And so Black Lives Matter was born out of that struggle. What we saw is since 2013 up through 2021, you saw a driving down of white supremacist and police violence. As the attacks came and began to take hold and began to gain space in media, you see kind of a waning of Black Lives Matter protests. And with that, you see an uptick, maybe more than an uptick, a surge in police and white supremacist violence. So if you want to know why you need Black Lives Matter, we need Black Lives Matter to drive down police and white supremacist violence and to usher in new forms, usher in ways that actually keep us safe, usher in spaces for Black freedom that go everything that span the gamut from housing to education to healthcare to what real safety looks like.
And that's interesting because Suzette, a lot of the cases, I'm not gonna say a lot, but a number of cases, some of those high profile cases, they come right out of the state of Florida. You know what I mean? Like it's those cases that I see the look on your face, Suzette. I mean, these cases are crazy, absolutely insane. That we're seeing some of the stuff that's coming out of the state of Florida. What over these past 10 years, and congratulations, Dr. Molina, for doing the work for 10 years, because that is a phenomenal, and that's a Herculean task to keep doing this for 10 years. But I'm interested in your side of the conversation, Suzette. What you're seeing in Florida is Black Lives Matter. How much of an impact is that making in the state, or even in the city of Miami, at least?
Well, I can say that it exists still, and I can see that there are, oftentimes rallying cries being made on behalf of even families that are, not making national news, but perhaps are in need of local support. I would say that even in my, humble opinion, it's very difficult to gauge because you have people that do a lot of work behind the scenes. But we have here a very progressive couple of counties, Miami-Dade County, Broward County, where we have friends who sit in, the prosecutor's offices, the state attorney of Broward County for the first time. I think it's the first Black man in the whole state of Florida to become the local county's state attorney, Harold Pryor, and his office. They've been doing a lot more work on behalf of families. He just did this is what comes to mind. He just had a man who was wrongfully convicted for 34 years, the case reviewed and evidence reviewed, and he was recently released. We've seen a lot more expungement and other types of seminars for people who cannot get work after, they have been convicted for a nonviolent type of crime and not able to really ingratiate themselves back into the society at large. So I have been seeing more of a push from my perspective, again, maybe in the circles that I work in, from, the halls of power when it comes to trying to address some of the systemic issues that exist within our criminal justice system. But I also see, people like, for example, the sheriff of Broward County. This is actually in Fort Lauderdale, the county seat. There are, except for one, all of the charter officers are Black. That is like unheard of. The clerk, the state attorney, the public defender, shout out to Gordon Weeks, and shout out to, I'm missing one officer. Oh, the Sheriff Gregory Toney. So only the property appraiser happens to be a nice guy, Marty Keir. But I'm seeing shifts in how people are approaching their offices as to, the movement towards better equity and fairness. But I see people all the time like Miss Sabrina Fulton and her organization, in the name of her son, Trayvon Martin. She's always around the community putting events together and marches and rallies and speaking at schools and things like that. Frederica Wilson, Congresswoman, longtime Congresswoman here, has been doing the work. 5,000 role models and other programs she's put together to try to get, again, that mental shift as seeing one another as brothers and sisters and not seeing your neighbor as your enemy, in some cases, as we've seen with inner city violence. And we've also seen, and shout out to State House, or actually he's a state senator, Chevron Jones. I have had an issue because I've asked several people are afraid sometimes to speak up when they're sitting in office because of the political climate here in Florida with our governor that will easily make you a target, and how popular he's become, pushing forward a radical agenda. But we are slowly seeing, people who are electeds in various levels of government coming more, to the fore. But as far as Black Lives Matter specifically, I cannot speak to them and their activity, in a broader sense, but I'm seeing shifts due to the political process.
Brother Farajii, do we
so
have
I
just
mean, and back to you, Doc. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Please.
Yeah,
help me out, please.
As we're talking about victories, actually one of our greatest victories did come in the state of Florida back in September. And I'm sure Sister Suzette remembers the killing of Andrew Joseph III, who was a 14-year-old boy killed as a result of police misconduct at the Florida State Fair. And we have been supporting the family, the Joseph family, who is one of the most powerful families in this movement. They've been fighting for 8.5 years. Andrew Joseph III was killed back in 2014 and finally got a day in court, won the largest civil jury award in Florida state history for something like this, won a $15 million award. And so that's one of the tremendous victories. Sister Suzette, I would love for you to plug in with Black Lives Matter Grassroots Florida, which is our only family-led chapter. Deanna and Andrew Joseph are the founders of that chapter and have been really doing tremendous work to specifically struggle for child safety. And so that's what's happening in the state of Florida. So there are some really clear and key victories that have come.
Thank you for educating me and speaking to that. I appreciate that because I'm more involved in politics, but I'm grateful to hear that, of course, those type of major victories are also being won due to the efforts of BLM in the state of Florida.
Absolutely. And Dr. Molina, we got a couple of moments left, but, looking forward, you're 10 years in, you're doing all of this work. The clarion call has been made loud and clear over the years. What's the next step for BLM Grassroots at this point?
So Black Lives Matter Grassroots is continuing to do the work on the ground. We're doing work all over the country. Again, our priority policy work is around ending qualified immunity, specifically in the name of Andrew Joseph III. We know that police use an unjust legal doctrine called qualified immunity to shield themselves from accountability. So we're pushing that. We're pushing to end the secret grand jury process and hold DAs accountable and push for what we call progressive DAs. And so, we've seen some victories around that. In fact, the co-founder of our Black Lives Matter prison chapter is being released after 17 years in prison because we have a district attorney who's refusing to hold him on what they call enhancements. He was a 15-year-old boy, didn't really commit anything other than a misdemeanor, but was had enhancements added to his charge, which kept him in prison for 17 years. We're also fighting for our stuff back. So we know that Black Lives Matter resources have been stolen by a group of highly paid consultants. They run the main social media platforms at this point and have control over those many tens of millions of dollars that poured into Black Lives Matter. We estimate it at now more than $100 million. They're holding that and withholding that from the movement on the ground. But the work doesn't stop. Black Lives Matter Grassroots has a lawsuit against the Global Network Foundation, and actually we'll have our first day in court at the end of this month. So we'll make sure that we keep you apprised, and we want to encourage all of your viewers to follow BLM Grassroots on all social media.
There it is right there. Dr. Melina Abdullah, who serves as the director. She's been there from the beginning, folks. She's been doing this work. She is a tenured professor, and she has one of the great scholars in the city of Los Angeles and around the country. Dr. Melina, we appreciate you taking time out your busy schedule to bring us up to speed on some of the big things that BLM Grassroots is working on. And God willing, we'll look to circle back because we definitely need to kind of get more details about that lawsuit and the impact and the implications that it will have moving forward on the movement on the ground. So we truly appreciate you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Doc. We truly look forward to reconnecting soon. Thank
All
you.
right. Peace,
Thank
brother.
you. Peace.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
There's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to The Culture. I'm Suzette Speaks, sitting in for Brother Farajii. I am here now, ready to dive into a completely different topic. And again, thank you to Dr. Abdullah for that update on Black Lives Matter. But now we are shifting gears, talking about the culture, y'all, and two very influential women that made a huge impact on the culture with bold statements. We're going to first start with Ciara. Yes, that risque, some called it, dress seen across the world that she wore at the Vanity Fair post Oscars after party. Now, many across social media, y'all, they had something to say. And I have two beautiful women who will be joining me to help discuss exactly what this means for a woman, a Black woman, a married woman, a woman who chooses to define herself not by what others think. Now, let's see what some of the commentators initially stated, or we can just show the dress. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it was, I remember the song, The Goodies, my goodies, not my, Ciara was showing the goodies. Hey, here we go. So we have to show you so that we understand in case you haven't seen this picture, but it went viral, y'all. And there's Ciara, and you can see to a certain extent, the front of the dress was see-through, and it was kind of laced, and she had her pasties, I mean, for lack of a better term, on, all the way down to her buttocks, and you could see her backside in dark, underwear, thong underwear. And of course, there were many who had issues with this. Others felt that she was doing her thing and making a bold statement as a woman who is empowered. But I want your take on this, y'all. What did you think about Ciara? We're going to try to make this, guys, a scholarly discussion. So without further ado, I have two beautiful ladies that are going to help me unpack Ciara's bold statement. The first is relationship expert and on-air host and guest here, has been here before on The Culture, is Dr. LaDawn Black. And also joining me for this segment will be Culture Crew member, the one and only Karina Denise. So I'm really excited to have both these ladies up and ready. Y'all ready? Woo.
I'm ready.
Y'all ready? Okay. So good to have you. So glad you're here. Thanks for making the time. So we're going to jump right in because we got a couple of different ways we can go here. So I'm going to start with Dr. Black. Welcome. So what did you see when you saw that image of Ciara in the dress?
You know what? Well, just to start out, I'm not a doctor.
Oh, you're not okay.
There are a lot of people who work really hard in that space, and I don't want to take that, from them. But I am a relationship expert and a media personality, so thank you so much for that.
Okay, fantastic.
Now, when I first saw the dress, the first thing I thought was, she looks beautiful. I mean, 3 children, and for your body to look like that, and she's standing next to her successful husband, I was just like, go on, Ciara, this is great. And then when you dug in a little deeper and you found out that the theme of the party that she was at was naked, you understood that it just wasn't a fashion statement. It was part of the theme.
So that's wonderful. So there was some context all of us were missing very much to that. How about you, Karina? Good afternoon. What were your thoughts when you saw? Good to see you, sis. What were your thoughts when you first saw this striking image of Ciara in that see-through gown?
Well, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, whoa. But I know it's Oscar weekend, but yeah, like these parties tend to have themes. So the theme of the Vanity Fair party was barely there. So I guess she revealed more than anyone else. I mean, she wasn't the only woman who was wearing, or adhering to the theme, yet she got the most backlash. So I thought that was an interesting point. So whether or not, however, any of us feel about how she was dressed, I mean, there was a theme and there were many other celebrities there who revealed quite a bit of their body parts. So, it just kind of feels like Ciara, for whatever reason, was the main target of all the criticism, despite other women were following the theme too. But yeah, I mean, just from some of the pictures that I've seen online, perhaps maybe she had the most revealing outfit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was going according to theme. So if we're going to be fair, I mean, there was a theme. She wasn't the only one dressed like that.
She wasn't trying to go hard without a reason, says the ladies. And I'm glad you guys brought up that there was, in fact, a theme. I see a comment here by Tiana. Tiana was like, she catches the most heat. Yeah, let's bring up Janae's comment or Tiana's, whichever first. And yeah, let's see. Janae said Ciara knew the assignment. The party was focused on nudity or skin. I don't think everybody knew that. When they saw the picture, they were like, come on now. Yes, thank you, Janae, Online Culture Crew, for chiming in and letting us know with the emoji why Ciara did what she did. And then let's go to Tiana. Hey, sis. Tiana says, Ciara catches so much hate. You guys agree with this? Like, leave her alone. Now, this is the part, and this is where we're going to kind of pivot into the relationship part. Now, the reason why so many people took issue with this is because Ciara is a married woman. And not only is she married to who? Russell Wilson, who is also, a public figure. And they've been married for 7 years now. Thank you again, Tiana. So do you think that fact that she is married in a relationship is a reason why so many people will go to LaDon? Why do you think people were so upset? If they didn't know the theme, okay, get it. Then there's the part of her being a married woman. Yes. Talk from your relationship expertise. Absolutely. Why is that such a big issue?
It was a huge issue because, one, she's not just a married woman. She's a married woman who's spoken on her faith, and her husband speaks on his faith, and they speak on their faith as a couple and how faith sort of played in them finding each other and having a beautiful family. So people are looking at her as a married woman. They're looking at her as a mother. They're looking at her as a Christian, and they're going, yes, you're beautiful, but you shouldn't be this naked at any point. So yes, she's getting a lot of heat. Halle Berry was at the same party and had a see-through black dress on as well, and she's not getting the same amount of heat. So it's something to consider.
Yeah, and that's really true. I'm going to bring up that faith part because I think that did kind of catch people off guard. There was just a recent video that also went viral of Ciara and Russell, but it wasn't at the Vanity Fair party. It was actually at a prison ministry. They were ministering to over 300 inmates. Actually, I think they were right here in Florida. And this video showed Ciara and Russell, again, as LaDon pointed out, they are, big on talking about their faith. So they are having a moment. I don't know if we can pull up that video, Keenan, to kind of show if people are not aware with what I'm talking about, if you're not big on social media. But I would like to play a little bit of that video of Ciara and Russell while at the prison ministry. Okay, he says he's going to pull it up in a sec. Okay, so I really want us to see that contrast. And I think that also played into why there was this hate or backlash and people just was, saying, hallelujah, praise God, sis. And then it seemed as if, again, out of context, not knowing the theme, now you naked, like what's going on there? Let's talk about, can you put back the picture, Keenan, with Mr. Wilson's facial expression? That really struck me. I don't care what nobody had to say. He was not smiling. He was not feeling it. I mean, I'm no body language expert, right? But can that be scrolled down, Keenan? I don't know if that's a flat image, but if you go to the website from this story in the Sun, poor Russell, the website will show you how it was really, scroll it. Look at the face. So hold on. Go back up to Russell face. I don't know if that's, give it to me, Hollywood face. Keep going down, please. And we can scroll on down. See everything. See everything. We're going to keep it PG-13 today. So we really got to capture, this was a statement, bold as ever, right? So I'm going to take the relationship aspect because, again, men and women have varying standards of what they expect. Of course, if you're a person of faith, you have a different standard. Of course, if you're, many things, what should and should not be happening in a relationship. Why do people feel that they should, be telling them what they should be doing? And then what should they be doing? Should this have been a discussion between man and wife? Do you think there was a discussion? Now, purely speculation, but I'm going to go to Karina Denise. Like, did it offend you, her being a mom? Because remember, They have 4 kids, 3 together and 1 from her previous relationship that they're raising. So was there a line that she crossed, even though there was a party, there was a theme, etc., in your opinion, Karina Denise?
I don't think there was a line that she crossed. And again, like, even though she's the one clearly being targeted here, there were other women there who I'm sure are also women of faith, who are also married, who also have children, who share those same characteristics as Ciara. So for whatever reason, Ciara is the one being targeted here. And you know what? To be honest, we're just in that realm now where celebrity culture and social media enhancing that, I would say maybe the past 15 years or so, has really magnified people's opinions. So there's always going to be backlash on everything. I can't imagine that Ciara wasn't prepared for something. Maybe it wasn't what she thought the backlash would be, but there's certainly going to be backlash. I mean, there was a time when a picture was worth 1,000 words, but I don't even know if that's true to form anymore, because we just see something, we see Russell's face, but I mean, they're in front of photographers and they're constantly snapping their cameras. So he could have just been caught in a moment that doesn't necessarily express, you know, how he was feeling. But I think we've just moved into this new normal where we just see a person caught in a moment and then we presume how they're feeling, or maybe he was unhappy with her attire. I mean, they're married. I can't imagine that they were both getting dressed for the party. And then
he didn't see her.
Right, he didn't see her, and he's shocked, right? You know,
right.
And who's to say, maybe he had some words like, wow, babe, like you're really going all the way with this barely there. But again, there was a theme.
Yes.
You know, so I mean, people are always gonna have something to say. I'm sure, you know, again with social media, it just heightens it, and folks are just ready to pounce, and there's always gonna be some backlash. I mean, she could have been fully clothed and someone would have had something to say. You know, either way, there's always gonna be a response.
Great points. I'm going to shift this now to what communication and relationship must look like to have a married man and a married woman agree. We don't know what their conversation was, y'all. We're not going to assume anything, but talk about that communications piece, please, LaDon, because the amount of comments I saw that was, my wife could never. This is a married woman. She is like, whoa, we come fast and furious now. We do. And again, she has had, you know, I think she's relevant in many ways with her music, and she has, you know, interesting themes, and she just got heat for, you know, coming strong with, you know, telling women you single and strong, and she got her good man at home. Okay, so we're not to digress. But talk about that communications piece. We got about 30 seconds before the break, and what you would recommend if you have this type of disagreement, let's call it, with a husband, and in terms of what you want to wear.
You know what? The thing we as women have to remind ourselves of, even when you're in a relationship, let's say it's a marital situation or just a long-term relationship, your body is yours. So in the end, you get the final say on how you present yourself to the world. And I'm quite sure there was a conversation. Like you said, they got dressed probably in the same room. So there is some degree of acceptance on his level. He had to okay it on some level. But the truth is, it's her body, and she should be able to display it how she chooses.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. We're just hard on a break. I'm going to read a couple comments from the Culture Crew, online Culture Crew, when we come back. More on Ciara and her bold statement right here on The Culture, right after this.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Hey everybody, we're back here on The Culture. I'm Suzette Speaks, sitting in for Farajii Muhammad. We're talking about Ciara's Oscar dress, post-Oscars Vanity Fair party dress. And I see a Culture Crew online member has asked, why is this important? Well, like it or not, these moments have a very big impact on the culture, how we think, how we dress, what we think about marriage, what we think about relationships, and even about religion. So we're going to go a little bit deeper, and then we're going to pivot a little bit. But let's play the video, if we have it, Keenan, of why the contrast between what Ciara wore to the Vanity Fair post-Oscars party and why the image that she had just been seen in that went viral are such a contrast. Let's play that video.
It says in Isaiah 43:18, it says, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I'm doing a new thing. I'm doing a new thing. Can you say a new thing? New thing.
You know what's so beautiful about God's love? It's relentless. He won't let off. He won't let off. And you know what I love about God and what He said in His promises is that there's no condemnation in Christ Jesus. So you ask for forgiveness, He will forgive you. My heart is filled with joy.
So that is a clip of a viral pre-Oscars party dress moment that Russell Wilson, NFL quarterback, and Ciara's husband, along with Ciara, were seen at the Everglades Correctional Facility, highest level security prison, and right here in my backyard in Miami, Florida. They had ministered to about 300 inmates, 27 people, they said, gave their life to Christ, et cetera, et cetera. So that went viral first. And then we saw the picture of the dress. I want to just give some context. Let's bring up a couple quotes that we saw in terms of response, and then we'll get our final response from our Culture Crew online, as well as our special guest here helping me out today. But let's see the quotes, please, if we can have them, as to how people responded to what they saw. So the first quote, Karen, we'll see. Okay, Culture Crew quote, but then let's go to the quote from the article. Ciara is a married woman as long as Russell is okay with it. What she wears is no one's business. That's fine. I hear you, sis. We can go to, let's go to Thomas Clayton Powell, or thank you, Keenan. Ciara stole the show at the after Oscars party. All right, Ciara turned heads as she arrived at the annual bash in what people called, and this is according to The Sun, a half-naked gown. Wilson and his wife of 7 years posed for photos ahead of the celeb-packed event on Sunday. Ciara's daring dress featured a see-through netted gown, long black gloves, diamond earrings, and dark underwear. And her look proved divisive on social media, with one fan describing it as NSFW, which is an acronym used in pop culture called Not Safe for Work. Let's go to the next quote, please. And Ciara gave her followers a peek into her glamorous night on the town, uploading a montage of pictures with the caption, Oscars night. One fan replied, this dress would have been better suited for the Grammys. Maybe her stylist got the events mixed up, LOL. Another added, I'm sorry, queen, this ain't it. While a third said, did you think you were going to a nude beach? So listen, this has been quite divisive. And we're going to bring back our contributors today, Culture Crew member Karina Denise, as well as LaDon Black. So guys, where do we end up with this as we kind of react to a couple more questions, or excuse me, comments in the chat? Can we bring up Thomas Clayton Powell's chat and I'll chat remark, and I'll have our guests respond, please? In my opinion, the message she's giving is that she has no modesty. How would you respond to that? We'll start with Ms. LaDon.
You know what? It has nothing to do with modesty. We have to keep in mind she's an entertainer first. She met her husband as an entertainer. He is familiar with her world. And as long as he's okay with it, like the previous chat person said, we should be okay with it. He seemed fine with it, and it got attention, and it was following a theme. Let them live their lives.
Okay. We'll bring up the next comment. Lori Parks, I see you, Culture Crew Online. Lori Parks said, not all Christians, but you go to the so-called Christians. Come on now. Oh, not all. Okay, I got you. I'm out there not breaking all this. Okay, Christians out here are breaking the 10 Commandments in the Bible while they all trying to play it off. Okay, so let's talk about that in terms of, did the faith piece throw you off, Karina Denise?
No, not at all. I mean, if we're gonna have that conversation and we want to get biblical, I mean, judge ye not, lest ye be judged. And there's always going to be some type of backlash. And let's be very clear, if we want to go to a Christian think in particular, and we saw Ciara, expressing her faith and her belief and her love for God, it doesn't mean that it's lessened just because of how she was dressed. I mean, even in the Bible, the 12 disciples, no one was perfect. Everyone who Christ chose to come along with him, no one was perfect. He was arguably the only perfect person on the face of the earth. So, again, how real are those Christians? To Lori Parks's point, a lot of times we criticize and we're not even following the way or whatever we want to label it as in our own daily lives. I mean, we all have something, but I really think the criticism and critique of her dress is very harsh. But again, a lot of these people, I'm pretty certain they don't even know about the theme of the party. They may not have seen other women who were dressed similarly to Ciara, but because she is the headline and she's the one who's going viral, they just see the picture, run away with it, and like, oh, why is she dressed like that without any context? And of course, I understand that, like, why is she so revealing? But yeah, find out what's happening. It is Oscars weekend. I think a lot of people aren't familiar with the themes of the party. I mean, again, maybe it was a little bit extreme. I think everyone's going to have their opinions, but I don't think it's fair to lessen her faith or her belief in God because of how she was dressed.
All right, now we're gonna have to leave it there with Ciara. I can't even pull up all the chat that I'm seeing. Some people on the online culture crew, there was nothing glamorous about being in prison, says Sandy W. We're gonna pivot to Monique here in a second, but no one else's business was all over the place. TMI plus it's mixed messages, says Taylor. I see all y'all. I wish I could put up everybody's. Put up Taylor. That's the last one for Ciara. We're gonna pivot to Monique, please. Taylor's comment. Thank you guys for being so active in the chat and sharing your opinion. This is a very big deal. Again, the culture has been impacted. And Taylor wrote, she employs clothing designers possibilities were endless, and still she could have gone along with the theme. Your opinion. Well, thank you so much for that. I'm going to shift gears now and talk so we can get enough time to talk about Monique. Now, if you guys don't know the story, when it comes to Monique, she has made this big announcement since putting out her business, all right, in 2006 in an Essence interview where she shared that she and her husband, Sydney Hicks, who also serves as her manager, are in an open marriage. So it was a firestorm back then, and it still is, because now she has come out in an interview with the Hollywood Reporter now saying she's done with that. She has matured past that, and that it has become kind of, there's no need for it. I don't know if she didn't use the word obsolete. Actually, let's get the quote directly if we have it, Keenan, so that we can review Monique's very transparent interview with the Hollywood Reporter. Here we go. Monique has reevaluated her open marriage and is happier than ever. Monique continues to be candid, that she does. The Oscar-winning actress and comedian first revealed back in 2006 that she and her husband/manager, Sydney Hicks, had an open marriage. It became such a talking point that the pair even co-hosted a podcast. Did y'all listen to their podcast titled Monique and Sydney's Open Relationship? But now, she now says she grew out of the arrangement. Well, let's get our initial reaction from our culture crew members here. We'll start with Ms. LaDon. What did you think when you saw that headline, and what could you, as a relationship expert, surmise was going on?
You know what? We have the right to change our relationships and to make them work for us at the different points in our lives. And I think, yes, they did have an open relationship probably when they first got married. And now she's saying, look, we're a little bit more older. We are more established as a couple. We get each other. It's time to close things down. And I think, as all couples should, you should reevaluate and set new rules for your relationship. So I don't think anything's wrong with it.
Okay, so natural progression. It was a whole podcast. It was let's tell the world, let's be real. And what I remember about those early interviews and videos, and I went back and watched some in preparation for today, Monique said it was her idea, where, you know, many people challenge that notion. It must be because of her husband. Her husband must be, you know, for the streets, and he want to be out there and all this. And she, you know, dispelled that at the time and was like, no, it's for me. Maybe I want to be with another person in a sexual way. And she was saying, and there was a lot made around, you know, no more lies is the theme of why they call it open, right? Instead of being distrustful. She said it was really her idea, came from her. Then her husband was like, okay, well, you doing you, let me do me. And right. Then they came to this kind of agreement. Are you kind of shocked, Karina Denise, or the kind of surprise I think the world feels in their reaction? Because I'm telling you, when it first came out, y'all, if y'all remember, people lost their minds. They were very devastated, brought God into it and the religion aspect, all this. It was really, again, impactful on the culture. What are your thoughts, Karina, in terms of what she's saying now and what it means for her as a woman and mother? They share 17-year-old twins and a wife.
I mean, I think initially I keep getting the question in my head, like, why is there such a major reaction? And then also, you know, why are we so easily sharing what's happening in our marriages and our relationships, you know, as public figures? So they have to expect the backlash. But then again, you know, they also find themselves in a new position of always having to explain themselves, right? Like you just remain under that magnifying glass now that you shared, or if you've changed your mind. So it's like, where's the bond that you share in your relationship if you keep sharing everything with the public? So everyone's going to have a reaction. Again, I agree with LaDon. I think couples can decide however they want to move in their relationships, to each his own. That wouldn't necessarily work for me to be in an open relationship, but for whatever reason, her husband decided it was good for them, and now they decided that they want to move forward from that. So, you know, things are constantly changing. People are evolving. You never know what's happening in someone's relationship, really, unless they choose to share it with you. And even then, you just have to take them at their word that what they're sharing with you is the absolute truth. So, I mean, Monique and her husband, all the best to them. It's their relationship. They're in the marriage at the end of the day. We're not. And I think that goes the same for any other relationship. Why are we so concerned? Of course, we're going to have our opinions about it, but, let them do them.
Okay, Karina Denise say, live and let live, y'all. Get out their business. But it is our business because you keep sharing your business. We have about a minute till break. I want you guys answering quickly. Do you guys think her coming out as having an open marriage shifted the culture to make it more acceptable? Because I'm wondering, are people, we're still talking about it in a way as if, this is wrong and this is terrible. And I don't know, again, my Christian Judeo beliefs aside, how much of everybody else is looking at it through that lens, or has the culture within the Black community said, well, if it works for them, like Karina Denise, why not? LaDonna, are you seeing that in your practice or when you're coaching people?
Sure. Well, the thing is, I think a lot of people have been in open marriages for years. They just didn't tell you about it. And we're in that mode right now where we share everything.
Yeah.
So I think we're just finding out more because people are sharing. But the truth is that people are having these types of relationships because they don't want lies and they don't want to deal with cheating. And this is one of the ways that they've seen to sort of stop some of that behavior.
Yeah, and I think there's also a component between generational acceptance. And I know that I read a recent article where, people under 29 are more likely to shack up. We have, so many of our older generation that saw it as, this kind of deep sin and the pariah that you become when you got a boyfriend living at your house, man. It was so terrible. All right, we got to take a quick break. We're going to come back and continue the discussion on what's going on with the maturity of Monique in her marriage. Don't go anywhere. More of The Culture right after this.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Culture. We're in our final segment talking about the influence on the culture that Monique's big announcement has had. She has said she has now outgrown what used to be a decision to have an open marriage. So we're asking our culture crew members, I'm thankful that they're here, Karina Denise, and thank you again to LaDon Black for sitting in today to give us their opinions on why this is good, bad, or, what do you think in terms of its influence on the culture? We're going to go straight to your comments, y'all, in the time that we have left. Let's start with Janae, and we'll bring back our culture crew members, please. Janae, thank you for leaving your comment about growth. We appreciate your feedback, sis. Again, this does evoke a lot of emotion. Janae writes, appreciate the growth. Some who are no longer married think this is the way to go, but Mo is saying it differently. She goes on to say, the grass isn't greener or better. Hello, somebody. People are being influenced without understanding it all. LaDon, can you respond to that? Would you like to respond to that?
You know what? I think that her comment is interesting. This is not a situation that's for everyone. And definitely if we follow celebrities and we really take in what they do with their loved ones, we go, well, that's for us. Well, it may not be for you. It works for Monique because her situation is unique to Monique. And really what she's doing is providing a platform for a way of conducting a relationship and just letting people know about it. But in no way do I think that she's saying that this is for everyone. And then at some point she said, it's no longer for me. So I think we just take it as a great, story, something else to add to, the toolbox and decide whether or not it actually works for us.
Cool. Let's go to the quote, please, Keenan, that Monique, again, explains herself in her interview with The Hollywood Reporter. She, again, in her own words, says, life began to happen, Monique told The Hollywood Reporter in a recently published interview. I began to see a strength I had never seen before. He loved me at my worst. I didn't want to sacrifice that just for a lay, her words. So I grew out of that. Well, that's where we are. Monique has been, most transparent of all celebrities with anything that's going on. Don't let Auntie, put your business out there because she will. And she does it for herself. So this is nothing new in terms of how she has chosen to live her life. Let's go to a couple more Online Culture Crew comments before we're out of time. Sean Ryan, thank you for chiming in. We appreciate you, brother. In his opinion, he says, that's just plain gross and disgusting. Sharing your wife. I can just hear you saying it that way. Again, your opinions are welcome. We, don't censor you here, and we appreciate so much. Sean Ryan. Now to Mimi D. 726, another Culture Crew member. Appreciate you, sis. Says, dear celebrities, stop telling me. Oh, here we go. All your business. We ain't that interested. LOL. My God.
Can I chime in here? I think
please.
That's kind of like where I stand with this whole thing. I'm not really that interested. I don't really care. I hate to say it that way, but I just think that
it's like
we hold these celebrities to such a high standard that the model or they have for their personal lives, we want to apply it to ours. So therefore, then folks are disappointed when they make a choice that they wouldn't necessarily make themselves. And I think we've shifted away from just enjoying, the entertainment that they bring to our lives, like whether or not they're acting, they're singing, they're dancing. There's such an over-involvement, in my view, of what's happening in their personal lives. And again, social media has just magnified that. So, any little move that they make, we're ready to crucify or to give backlash. And it just seems like everyone's going to have an issue, good, bad, or indifferent. If she never had an open marriage, there's a lot of other things that people are going to say about her marriage or anyone else's for that matter. So it's kind of just like, what do you do? But again, if you're going to be sharing your business, you have to expect that when you change your mind, there's going to be a reaction. So people do things and then expect things not to be messed up or turn out a certain way, but there's always going to be a consequence or a reaction to whatever behavior or whatever you decide to say, especially when you have that type of platform.
Awesome. Very, very interesting point of view. Thank you, sis. Let's go to a few more comments from our Online Culture Crew. Let's go to Deanna. Hey, Deanna. Deanna Vanasco says, it's gross for a woman to share a husband with y'all on that. Listen, we have very strong opinions here and we respect all. Thank you, Deanna. Okay, let's go now to Love Big 41. Deanna said, y'all, this is gross. Makes no sense getting married if you want to see other people. Those vows are clear. Forsaking others for as long as you both. Listen, we done got all the gospel truths here today. Let's take one more. Thank you, Love Big 41. She said, don't say the vows if you don't mean them. What y'all doing? Hello. It's that simple. Let's go to
say the vows and don't mean them.
That's not the only one. Hey. And now, final comment. Thomas Clayton Powell says, an open marriage is always a good idea until it's not. Listen, my online culture crew, I love reading this phone. I'm just lighting up with all of the feedback. We're going to give our guests their final comments. We'll start with you, Karina Denise. Final comments on Monique's big announcement.
I mean, just to circle back to my initial points, I think we're too laser focused as a society on celebrity culture in general. So I'm just looking at all sides of the argument. You know, Monique has to expect some type of backlash. I'm sure she's used to it by now, you know, given especially how much she's been in the media or, you know, these past few years or whatnot. But again, like, you know, there are many things happening in other folks' marriages that we're not even privy to. So to kind of just crucify her for having an open marriage to begin with, is that really fair? Because there's probably somebody else that you really admire. And just because they don't talk their business doesn't mean it's not happening. So I think we need to keep all those things in mind. But yeah, when it comes to Karina Denise, I don't really care. Like,
you're like, let them live and let live. Well, thank you for being a part of today's conversation. Big up my sister. Also, hey, let's go. Miami Dade Rob, what's up? All the way from South Florida. Thank you so much, Karina Denise, for being a part of our crew today. I'll see you soon, sis. Thank you so much. And final peace and love, and final comments from you, LaDon.
You know what? I think that in sharing her open marriage story, she's letting people know that there's options for love and that you can shape love to fit your relationship. Now, in rolling it back, she's saying, look, it's never too late to reshape your love. And I think that's an important message. And that's really what we should get from this story, is that love doesn't have to look the same day one on day 20. It can change, it can evolve, and it can definitely be time at any point in the relationship to make the best decision so that your love can thrive.
I love it. LaDon says, allow people to grow and change. Well, ladies, I'm going to let you two go. We're going to drop you down. Thank you so much for being here, LaDon. Thank you again, Karina Denise, for sharing your thoughts on these hot topics. We appreciate you two, ladies. And I'm going to do a quick plug. Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed this edition of The Culture. I also am a YouTuber, in addition to coming to you live every Wednesday from 3 to 5 with Farajii Muhammad, live each Wednesday. But yeah, if you could please check me out, you could throw up my page. Hey, there she is. Suzette Speaks. Also discuss hot topics and trends and get opinions. And I will be picking up this conversation actually tomorrow when it comes to Ciara and Monique on my channel tomorrow at 12 noon. But please help a sister out. Go subscribe and show your love and support to us, you know, burgeoning up and coming YouTubers. But we do it for the love. We love good, lifted, elevated conversations, and I appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, we'll see you. Suzette Speaks in for Farajii Muhammad here on The Culture. Y'all have a good night.